Tremors is a CCI wind roller coaster located at Silverwood Theme Park in North Idaho. It is known for featuring 4 different tunnels and an awesome drop through a gift shop. It's one of the rides Silverwood is most well known for, and in today's video I'll be giving you my full review of the attraction. I've had 2 pretty different experiences on Tremors. The first was in 2017 at Scarywood, where I only got to experience Tremors in the pitch darkness in 30-degree weather. It also happened to be on camera, and so we had this bright light shining in our faces, so we couldn't really make out of what was going on with the ride, but I got off of it with a pretty good impression from what I could tell was going on. My second experience was in August of 2020. That was my first time experiencing Tremors during the day, and it was also during the summer season, so the ride was just running different. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of had a higher opinion of the ride after the first time I did it versus the most recent visit. From what I remember, the ride just seemed to be running faster during the winter time when it was really cold as opposed to when it was a fairly average mid-70s day. And for those of you that have ridden roller coasters during different times of year, you know that how a ride runs varies depending on the time of day, the type of weather that it's in. Some rides run a lot slower during the winter, but others feel faster. And of course, here at Coaster Studios, we prefer a fast-paced ride, and unfortunately, I didn't really feel like that was the case this past visit I had. The first half was great, really nice pacing, but for me, the second half is where this ride faltered. But let's break this thing down element by element and talk about its strengths and weaknesses. When you come out of the station, you start up an 85-foot tall lift hill, you crest the top, and you have an amazing view of Aftershock. The top of the lift points directly towards the attraction. It is really cool looking to your right and seeing a giant inverted boomerang, and then you take a turn to the left, plunging into darkness. Now, this is not a particularly steep drop, but what's cool about it is that the drop is bigger than the height, only by about 14 feet, but because this ride goes underground, it is an additional way of gaining some speed. And for those of you looking for a nice trivia fact, that gift shop that Tremors goes through was designed by none other than Fred Grubb. During his time at Silverwood, when he was with CCI and they were constructing Tremors, he thought it'd be a great idea for the ride to go through a gift shop, and so he put that together as well as the station. The station's cool because it has this collapsed roof kind of feel like a big earthquake has come by, which really fits with the name Tremors. And that's not the only time that Fred Grubb and RMC have influenced this attraction. We'll get to that part a little later. But it's very cool it goes through the gift shop. I think it's actually cooler being in the gift shop than being on the ride plunging through it, because when you're actually standing in the gift shop, you look out through this window, you see the ride plunging directly towards you, and then you can turn around and see it shoot out the other side. That's pretty sweet. Getting back to the drop, don't plan on a whole lot of airtime as you get thrown over this. I mean, in the back you get some good pull, but for the most part I would say this is not really an airtime focused ride. There is a cool moment when you shoot out of that gift shop before you go into the next tunnel where you're on the speed hill, and that is actually a pretty sweet moment. That's probably one of the best parts of the ride, is you go from pitch darkness, speed hill, back into darkness, and then shoot out the other side. When I really think about it, I think that's the coolest moment of the ride, is that sequence. One of the best ways to increase your sense of speed is to fly through something, because you realize how fast you're really going, that it just blows by. In Tremors' case, you're going about 50 miles an hour, but maybe right there it feels faster than that. Now when you shoot out of that second tunnel, the ride's gonna feel a little smoother. This is probably the most unique part about Tremors, is that it has sections of RMC topper track where it physically changes from one track type to another. It's not a rough transition or anything, but it is a noticeable difference. The ride feels a lot smoother when you're on the RMC topper track. They put this in place when they were testing it out before they were building Outlaw Run, and it's still there. With the topper track, you don't have to do as much maintenance, constantly repairing the same sections of one track over and over again. And so it's no surprise that sections of Tremors have gotten rough, but that section where the topper track is has not. So the smoothest parts of the ride are definitely when that is there, but it would be kind of nice if after all this time, maybe they just did topper track throughout the entire layout, or maybe even brought in more sections of topper track to fix other sections, because it is a little strange when you suddenly go from a really smooth section to an area where it's kind of rough and beats you up a little bit. So if I had to make a critique, I think that would be a really nice change to see happen. But seeing as they're building a Raptor, they got other things to worry about, so I'm not hugely worried about this, but maybe it's something to consider in the future. So after you hit that section of track, you bank to the left, and this is the beginning of a giant helix. Now this helix does not stay on the same horizontal plane the entire time. It has sections of slight banking swing and it'll dip down, then rise back up a bit, but it's one continuous section where you're pretty aggressively going to the left. So naturally, your body wants to throw you the other direction and you're kind of slammed to the right. And CCI is known for laterals. It's one of the things they do best. And so it's not surprising that we see some good laterals here. So you turn out of that Helix, we have an Airtime Hill. I think you can get some airtime here. It's not aggressive though. You aren't flying over it like that first speed hill after the drop. Consider it like some mild floater air. And from here you pop back up and transition to the right, and this is where you have another section of the RMC topper track. So this area is a lot smoother as you're on this back section of the ride. And start on what is the return trip. In my opinion, this is where the ride starts to feel lackluster. I don't know if boring is the right word to describe it, but it's just not terribly exciting. I think if it were just paced a bit better, then that would likely fix the issue. But these next couple of hills, you just go over them and nothing really happens. You feel a noticeable change in speed as you come out of that turn. I mean, you're going several miles per hour slower. So now when you go over another airtime hill, you don't really get anything. And you can tell that they were even prepared for the possibility of it valleying there, that they incorporated an anti-rollback at the top of the next hill. You do a slight turn to the left, and this is when you go into your third and fourth tunnels. And it kind of repeats the same pattern that you had at the beginning of the ride, where it drops into a tunnel, speed hill, another tunnel, and then you rise out. It's nowhere near as good as the beginning, but that's kind of expected. You bank to the right next to the drop and take a turn into the brake run. Overall, it's a long ride, and that is nice to see. Plus, the ride just takes up so much room that you can see it from almost anywhere in the park. I mean, most of the pathways of Silverwood go around Tremors to some extent, so it's a very prominent ride in this park. And I think to the average park goer, they're probably going to love it. I mean, as I mentioned, it has its rough patches here and there, but I don't think that pacing is going to bother them like it will maybe some enthusiasts. But I think for me, the second time around that I rode it, I was just slightly underwhelmed because it wasn't as good as I remembered. Granted, this was my first time actually being able to see the ride, so I don't know, maybe the ride was going the same speed that first time I rode it, but the difference was when it's your first time and it's at night, your sense of speed is kind of thrown off a little, and so it feels like it's going a lot faster than it actually is. I don't know the science behind it, but I think if I had to sum up this ride, I'd say Tremors is good, but it's not great. It's an enjoyable coaster. You'll get off saying, yeah, that was fun, but I don't know if you'll necessarily be over the moon about it unless maybe this is one of your first big attractions. So for the ride's final score, I will be giving it a 6.5. In the grand scheme of things, I don't feel like the ride is super memorable. Like I said, that best thing about it is dropping through the gift shop, speed hill, then back underground. That's a really nice section, but everything else, I don't know. You could take it or leave it. When compared to other CCIs, I'd say this is probably mid to lower tier. I think you might even be able to make an argument that Timber Terror is the stronger attraction. But that's just me. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of Tremors? Do you agree with the things I've mentioned? Is there something that you think I missed, or do you think I'm wrong about anything? You can post all that down in the comments below. And of course, you can stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.